That's right. I have wrestled with an alligator. I done tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail.
You can't stop me.
I'm going to win.
It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
I won't quit.
I'll just keep getting stronger.
Stronger?
Stronger.
Dude, you teed him up for that one.
Yeah.
What I wanted to say is I didn't come last time. It was like a complete power move, and it worked. Like, just like I could never get you on a podcast just because I never really asked, and we're busy.
Yeah, like I always would have been on one. Like that really wasn't the issue. You just hadn't asked. I don't know why. I mean, I'm obviously the best interview in the business, and I think it's just a typical thing where you're just afraid of me, and
Sort of.
and that fear just prevents you from moving towards your highest level of success. And it's understandable.
I don't disagree. I mean, the last podcast I didn't set things up, and the way you talk about things is like you're super like against the grain, and you definitely scared my other podcast host, which is fair.
God, you were on with Andrew?
No, it wasn't with Andrew.
Yeah, no, there's no way. That would have lasted like 2 minutes.
Yeah, because you don't like the fitness industry, and then I just didn't ask you because. Yeah, well, I don't know. Like, do you even like the fitness?
Why don't we do the podcast and you ask me some questions and we'll get to the actual real answers?
Like, do you like the fitness industry? It sounds like I know your spiel. I know you well enough to know. Like,
is this being recorded at this point?
I can unrecord things. I can stop recording.
No. Let's record it. Let's get going. Just also just from a timing perspective. But
yeah. Well, how long do you got?
About an hour.
Okay, as long as we can catch up and talk shit.
Hour 10, something like that. Yeah.
Depends on how much you like. Usually, if you like it a lot, people stay a little bit longer. That's what
Sure.
The muscle dog. He was like, hey,
so 45 minutes tops.
45 minutes. It was like an hour and a half, and he's like, I just tell people that so that I don't have to do it. And I was like, dude, I know the spiel. That's what I would say too. Like, oh yeah, half an hour. But we won him over. He stayed, and then he talked for like an hour afterwards. Like, oh, 45.
I don't have that much time. So
no, I know. I don't really.
We'll get down to business.
Yeah. So like,
you just tell me when it's recording and we're actually doing it.
We're recording, so you can put on your facade thing you do, like get your traps up.
No, I just want to actually answer the questions properly.
Well,
so your first question was
coming here thinking we're asking questions. We're just. What do you think this is? I know you've done like 20.
But you did start with a question. I just wasn't sure if we were actually recording or not, because I think it's a good question. I think it's worth having listeners hear the answer. So
Jeb's gonna ask.
Because you're like the classic guy at the seminar that waits to the break to ask the question so that you can monopolize the information from the answer. And I always try to avoid that. So. You asked whether or not I like the fitness industry, and I do like the fitness industry. I think it's a game to me. Like, I like games, and I actually like the people that work in fitness for the most part. Believe it or not, I mean, there's parts of the industry that drive me crazy, like poor decision making, lack of logic being utilized, inability to recognize like a hierarchy of variables in terms of what's most important, what's less important. But overall, I think that the people in the industry are great people for the most part. It's actually, I think it's an industry of people that tend to like what they do in terms of, practicing these things in their real life, like actually exercising, enjoying exercise, movement, and liking to get better, like actually pursuing continuing education. And look, it's not everybody, and there's tons of examples of people that haven't gone to a continuing education course in a long time, and they sort of are just doing the same thing day in and day out, and it's a lackluster product at best, and blah, blah, blah. But, I'm sure every other industry is filled with people like that. And I don't know what else there's nothing else I would want to work in than the fitness industry. And I kind of like the fact that it's sort of unregulated. It's like the Wild West. Like, you can, if you're a gunslinger, you can come into town and everything's kind of fair. Like, do your thing, figure
Did you
it
know
out.
that going in? Like, so I'm like looking at you, like PhD, whenever you had your crazy story, and then like
Yeah.
did you know what the fitness industry was like when you were in school, knowing like, hey, I'm gonna go in while guns blazing, or were you just like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but it's fitness shit? Like,
So, I always believe in very truthful answers. It's always more interesting.
don't lie. We're not lying here, Pat.
Well, people sometimes, I don't think people give highly truthful answers oftentimes, and I try to avoid that because it can be uncomfortable. So, I think I did have a pretty good sense of what the fitness industry is, largely because really for me it started as a kid watching fitness shows on ESPN, and when I was younger in the '90s and even the '80s. You used to have a lot more fitness-based things on ESPN. There was bodybuilding shows. They had the aerobics championships on there.
That was your thing, eh?
Well, I mean, it was on, like, it would be the same like hour-long program as the Olympia. So they would show like the aerobics world championships, like the team ones. Like, so you'd see these people from Brazil that looked like they were on crack, like kicking like the Rockettes and doing all kinds of wild shit. Then you'd have the figure. No, they might have called it fitness, like women's fitness. I probably watched it mostly for that, like to see hot chicks in bikinis, like doing crazy, those weird push-ups, like explosive push-ups and jumping around. And it was like almost gymnastics, but kind of exercise, but with hot chicks in bikinis.
Well, and they had that like G-string leotard that they all wore in the 80s too, which was as close as we got to seeing butt.
There was no internet back then, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so there's always got to be a draw, like, as to what makes you go towards something. And like, honestly, like seeing super hot fitness chicks in bikinis jumping around on stage was a huge draw. And, they also had the workout shows on in the morning. Like, they had Gilad in Hawaii doing his like aerobics thing next to the beach. And, they would have body shaping with Big Rick and Dr. Pete lifting weights, and then it would be Kiana and Kendall doing the aerobics. And yeah, man, like Kiana probably is as responsible for me being in this industry as anybody. So back, I can just remember this stuff. Like, you sort of had these big alpha muscular dudes, and then these like hot chicks, and this is like this place where they had this common ground, like this shared interest of fitness and, looking good and eating a certain way. And it was like clearly a culture. And it was like, well, I loved physical activity, I mean, as a kid, it was like a savior for me. If I wasn't good at sports, I'd be fucking dead. Like, I would definitely have like blown my brains out years ago, probably in a crack house or something like that. So, there were a lot of pulls to send me towards fitness. And, I think that it's like, I could bitch and moan about there being like dumb people in the industry and a lot of horse shit and that stuff. And I do, don't get me wrong. It's like a big driver of social media success for me is pointing out stupid shit and bitching about it. So I'm grateful for it, quite honestly. But, man, I do love this industry. I love training. I love getting in there with other people that are savages and like crushing it and learning new things and all that kind of stuff. But when I got into it, I would be lying if I said I didn't see a huge opportunity. Yeah. I think that, I did my undergrad in history, and, it was kind of like I was looking at what I could do career-wise with that. And I got an offer to work for the History Channel coming out of undergrad because I had, qualified for a honor society with the grades that I got and a couple of papers that I had written. I've always been good at being able to read, synthesize, and write responses. So, I was talented in academics from that perspective. But it was kind of like, I didn't know where I would go with that degree. Like, you could potentially go into like law or philosophy in some ways, or you could work in a museum, or you could work for the History Channel, or you could be a teacher, or get a PhD and work in a university. And I don't know, like I might have gone down that route if I hadn't hit kind of like a substance abuse bottom in 2003 when I was beginning graduate school for history. But it sort of knocked me out of anything and sort of like just sent me reeling. And after hitting that bottom, I kind of put my life back together again with rehab and recovery and 12-step programs. Yeah. And I just happened to get sort of funneled in the direction of exercise science as my target at that point. And as soon as I got into exercise science, I noticed that the caliber of academic talent was not nearly what it was in history, for instance.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, all right, like I think that I could very quickly move through the ranks in this discipline and become a prominent person very quickly if I actually work at it. And I was right, quite honestly. Yeah. So I think that from the perspective of it's almost like why would a lion choose the healthiest zebra? Like, I'm going to find the limping zebra and I'm going to take that motherfucker out.
It's true, though. If you look at history stuff, like I'm reading this book on history of like psychedelics, blah, blah, blah. They like research all these people. There's some people there that have spent a lifetime doing the history of fucking like, genetics on cups found in dig sites. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't just climb those ranks. Like with fitness, I saw the same thing. I came from being a teacher. I'm like, oh, everyone's stupid. And
yeah, like my history
people, but like the vast majority of what you call it, the bringing the tides and stuff. The tide's so fucking low. I was like, this is super easy. So,
but it also makes sense, I think, because you're applying what you're applying. I think more of a model that someone coming from one of those disciplines would. And I look at that, and just the categorical nature of rethinking the big patterns does fit way more with someone coming from a history background really than what you would see in exercise science. So it's
right.
It's brilliant, but it makes perfect sense.
It's also a new industry, like really.
Correct. It's an immature science. I try to point that out a few different ways in the book, where I try to make the comparison to pharmacology in some ways, where pharmacology and biology are the two easiest comparisons that I try to make to show hallmarks of a mature field versus an immature field. And with pharmacology, for instance, with all the different kinds of drugs, they're all put into different categories, and they're all, dosed and with specific titration recommendations for very specific kinds of conditions. And that's something that should carry over to exercise. It makes perfect sense. And we have this kind of like tagline of exercise is medicine. Well, medicine is essentially drugs, let's be honest. Yeah. And when it comes to exercise or this comparison, if you think about every drug that exists, there's kind of this scientific like taxonomy based name that's given to the drug, and then there's the generic name that we know the drug by. So it's like I don't know what the exact scientific name of Viagra is, but it's got like some very specific like categorical name that would identify to pharmacists exactly what class this thing belongs to and very specific descriptive components of that drug. And then there's the generic name that we all just know it by as Viagra. And then if you think about it from biology, there's the generic name that we know everything by, like, oh, that's a fucking a crow, but a biologist would know the thing from the kingdom, the phylum, the genus, the class, the species, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, it's an avian, and it's a mammal, and it's like phylum chordata because it's got a spine, it's an animal, it's all of these things. And then it's got, more and more pigeonholed into exactly the description of what the creature is. And exercise should work in a similar way. Like, first and foremost, like you need to have the category for what the exercise belongs to. You need to have more specific kind of, like it's a fractal type of description system, or like a nested structure description of, there's an outer description and then a more inner description and still more inner descriptions until you get down to the essence of the thing. And it should have a descriptive name. And that should be the thing that the practitioners in the field utilize to be able to understand what this thing is and where it fits into the greater scheme of things. And then it can have a generic name, but the interesting thing is that right now there is only generic names for the specific things that we dose out to the people that we work with. And that's just it's just an indicator of an immature discipline. So anytime, like, I don't know, why would you?
Like, I would say it's attractive. Like that's kind of like, it's like your stuff is attractive to people who want that stuff, but it's like the other people are fucking scared. They're like, well, I have to actually learn stuff. Like there's 3 categories here. That's a lot. I thought it was just Viagra.
Exactly.
I think it also can play to a larger audience in that, like, hey, we're going to always have people who are just going to call it a crow. And cool. But we're also going to have people that really can dive into this and understand where it comes from. And the vast majority of people are just going to call it a crow because that's as far as they really want, and that's as far as they need to get. And I don't think practitioners should fall in that, but for general population. And so this actually allows us to have all of our bases covered if we can go into that categorical model.
Yeah. I mean, even a good biologist or, whatever professional would bring you around a nature place and show you the different kinds of animals. They wouldn't give you like this scientific name for what the fucking crow is. Like, they're working with the general population. They're like, hey, there's a crow over there, and they're going to tell you some things about it. And they're, so it's still the ability to differentiate and understand how to communicate with the levels of people that you're talking to. But being able to have, just a professional discourse with, good, solid identifying markers for the things that we work with, it honestly makes it easier as a practitioner ultimately to be able to do your job more effectively once you have an idea of where something belongs, and then to have things beyond that, like kind of some sort of a logical rule book for whether or not it's being done properly execution wise, and how to make it more and less challenging versions of the concept that you're trying to get across. So yeah, I just think that there's a lot of there's fresh ground to be able to plant seeds in the fitness industry. It's almost like we haven't had that many. Like, you think about other areas like mathematics, like how fucking smart would you have to be to like actually think of something new in that field? Like a freak of fucking nature. But in exercise science, there's so many fresh plots of land where if you go into that area and you think about how a mature discipline has created the navigation of a similar thing, now you can even borrow from those areas and model off of those things to make a more useful, better version within exercise.
Well, so you see it happening though. Like, we'll call it the Rethinking the Big Patterns cult. You're the cult leader, and there's all your people that come on your Instagram and stuff. But there's like, you're seeing this with all the people coming on your page and fucking yelling at you, like I don't know, like, sure. You know what I mean? But even with you're into running mechanics lately, but like you look, there's camps in running mechanics where that stuff wasn't even a thing fucking 10 years ago, and now they're talking about outside edge and inside edge, and
and I don't know enough about like biology or medicine to know whether or not there's like these kinds of cults and camps. There might be, but I would bet that there's less of it because there's more of a governing body and like a central body of knowledge and things like that. I'm sure that, but I bet you there still are, like, every time you dig into an area.
Yeah, let's look at the cholesterol argument. I mean, right now, like I was talking to Dr. Tommy Wood, and they're delving into, in athletes, is LDL going to be an issue, like leading to atherosclerosis? Like, because they just don't know. And that's
Yeah.
crazy in something like as advanced as that. So I'm sure
Right.
these arguments are still happening, just probably on a micro level and not on
Yeah.
social media.
Even within that religion book I was talking about, like they're coming down to like there's just not enough information because they can't go far enough back and have enough evidence. So there's camps of theories breaking off of like it started with beer or it started with bread. You know what I mean? But like there is camps, and all of them are very smart. Where like I don't know if it's the same thing in fitness. Some of the people that are in camps are stupid, and so you're like, I don't. Yeah.
The cult thing is something I find really interesting in general. And you know, I hate the idea of cults. Like I really do. Like I don't want my thing to end up like that. I've seen enough of these things. Like, you know, I feel like I think like from my own personal life experience, you know, I never felt like I was a part of anything particularly well. Like I always felt a bit like an outsider looking in on most things, and a bit of like a solitary person or an individualist in a lot of ways. But it made me really hate cliquishness. Like I really hate the formation of cliques. And I see it happen a lot. I've seen it happen in groups of my friends, and it always has bothered me. And as soon as I see it, I try to get away from it. Like I don't like it, and I move away from it very quickly. And
it's also a problem because like and this isn't even to say you're cult. I use the cult word, but you're almost, because you're smart and can dictate the stuff. They're like, let's get Pat to go after these guys, or let's get Pat to go after this concept, and you almost create the thing that you don't want. Is like, I don't want to put the work because Pat's going to do it, and I can just read Pat's thing. So it's interesting because you end up being the guy with the big swinging sword.
Yeah, sword. But I don't know, man. I would like to make something that's more inclusive, if anything. You know what I mean? I want this to be inclusive. I want it to be something that's logical and with verbiage that's very clearly and accurately defined. Yeah. And so that anyone could, if they're willing to put in the work, could understand it. You know, it's like I just see so many examples of groups, and I don't care. I'll call them out. GOATA is a perfect example of trying to make up new words and to, you know, be very GOATA. Is that how you say it?
Okay, let's give you an education here. It's GOATA. Okay. You didn't lose it. The greatest of all time athletes.
Well, yeah, but it's like with the end at the A at the end, I feel like it would change.
I actually I feel like that's how you should say it.
That's how I was saying it.
You almost convinced me now that would make them
GOATA.
Because I was mad at you for saying it wrong, but I'm like, that might actually be. You're very smart. I think you meant to do that. Anyways, GOATA.
No, I honestly didn't. I haven't heard them pronounce it.
Because it's a fake.
You know,
it's not even a word. Like that's why it's like.
No, it's a terrible initialization. It's just, but look, like all they drive me crazy because they have all the signs and symptoms of cult behavior, and it's like they're purposely trying to not explain things. Well, I don't know if they're purposely doing it or not, because quite honestly, they seem like kind of dumb people to me, and it's like they're unwilling to. Like I don't even know where to begin with it. Quite honestly, they're aggravating, but they use fake words that aren't scientifically, you know, accepted. We already have words for the things that they're trying to say, but they say it in a way that is like, now I'm just trying to figure out, what are you actually trying to say? You know, it's weird shit. You know, you're probably like, I'm almost emotional about it, and when I get emotional, it's hard for me to have the right words
they're really good at that though. Like that's what you mean. It's like cult behavior. Like I like looking at all this stuff because it's super interesting, because I'll go like down some threads and see, hey, what are these guys fucking saying?
But you know, you kind of nailed it. Like what they've seen is they've seen expansion, like a version of expansion. They've seen the benefits of putting athletes into supination, and you
just
know,
staying in propulsion. Like all the guys they're looking at are literally the bouncy guys that just like kind of fly. And that could be, they might not even be wrong in terms of for that person, that might
right.
be the best
Yeah,
thing.
I agree. Like they're seeing exceptional propulsion monsters
Yeah.
that also have the ability to expand.
Yeah.
You know, and like, oh, weird, this guy's a great athlete. Shocker of all shockers.
You can turn it
The
on.
guy that has, the guy that has compression and expansion is a great athlete who also happens to be like, you know, anthropomorphics wise, the right size and shape for the sport that they belong
And
to.
this is where I want them to be somewhat, some of their principles are right. If you can, because a lot of people are too far into compression. They just get people out of there
Yeah.
so that they have that. And those are the best athletes, the ones who don't go too far. And they're just, it's kind of cool that
they don't know why what they're seeing makes sense.
No.
They've seen supination, the ability to maintain some level of expansion for propulsion, compression dominant people.
Yeah.
And yes, those are the great athletes. And oftentimes the people that are completely compressed and unable to remove themselves from that struggle. Okay, weird. But it's like, they don't know why. But then it's like, if you try to get into a discussion with them, they just like divert it and they say that you couldn't possibly understand something because you haven't watched slow motion videos and accepted nature for what it is. And it's like, I don't even know how to have a conversation with that because it only circles back to that same statement relentlessly, and how I'm so dogmatic and scientific that I couldn't possibly accept this new way of thinking. And it's like, then my temper takes over. And I just want to like punch people's teeth down the back of their throat and just abuse people. And it's like, you know, I'm trying, man. I feel like Jules Winfield at the end of Pulp Fiction. Like, I'm trying real hard here, Ringo. You know, I'm trying to be the shepherd and walk some people through the valley. But, you know, Mr. 45 here, he wants to go off. And
pretty impressive.
It's kind of like
their ability to withstand condescend. I don't even know if you were condescending. They're like, no, you're an idiot. And I was like, man, you stopped posting. You're like, they got Pat. They're like, shut the fuck up. They're like, dude.
Well, no, it's so relentless. It never ends. It's like, I feel like, you know, you're exposing yourselves as being idiots at this point. So like, those are the things that I find difficult about the fitness industry. But even with it, I love it because, you know, it is a bit like pro wrestling. There's some drama, there's some heels, there's some of this stuff. And it's like, you know, I think
very similar strategies, actually. And weirdly, like, I agree. I don't think you're a guru cult thing. I think that it's a little bit more educated. So most people, there's probably some people that would think you're a cult leader. Like, I would totally understand that.
But let's look at why they would think that, though, because we exist in this evidence-based community, right? And within science, in a lot of ways, just because of the education and intellectual manner in which it's disseminated, it exists like the Catholic Church did before Martin Luther, right? You have to get your information from the priest because you can't read. And so when that dissemination, and so I think the advantage in the opposite of a cult leader in putting together a vernacular that is commonplace amongst everyone, and we all have the same definition in Rethinking the Big Patterns, for instance, then it's like having the written word in the printing press and everyone can read. And all of a sudden, if everyone can read, we don't have that hierarchy anymore. Now we start to allow more people access. And so I think it actually does the opposite. It just takes those people learning how to read.
That's a great point, Jeb.
That's a Pat description.
I wish, man, that was really outstanding. But you know, I mean, look, this book is going to be coming out maybe 2 weeks, something like that. Like it's pretty much there. Like, and my hopes is that, like, I literally wrote down everything that I know in terms of movement and how it works and these models and all that sort of stuff. And I do hope that it's you know, I want people to scrutinize it. I want it to be something that's really analyzed in depth by intelligent people that are capable of making these sorts of critiques. You know, I welcome intelligent critiques But I do think that, yeah, I'd like this to be a situation because there's so many people that want to learn some of these movement-based principles. And the problem is that it's not centralized. There's no like singular sort of a place that you can go to. It's so spread out. And I did want to just be able to bring it to one place. And I'm not saying that mine is like better than anybody else's, but I think that my primary skill is that I'm able to consolidate things into one thing. You know what I mean? I'm able to bring things together pretty effectively because there's plenty of people that I know that are much more educated about, you know, dental components. There's people that are smarter about the feet. There's people that understand the pelvis better, the thorax better, respiratory action. Like I consider myself like a B+ person in terms of each region, in terms of understanding it. But I think that I'm an A when it comes to seeing the whole picture and understanding how to put it into a model that makes sense. And so that's what I tried to do. And I think that if people are willing to read it and think about it and go through it, literally anybody should be able to figure this thing out and become a much better coach and practitioner with this information.
I think that's a big point too, because we even joke about, like, we've brought it up a few times with the wedge squats. Like when you're on your wedge squat, tear squatty squat thing, a lot of people went a lot of ways, but they didn't have all the information because it's like Instagram and whatever power hour they showed up to. But this kind of gives people more things, so it becomes less culty. Because the only problem with Instagram stuff and very small snippets is like people start spreading Pat's word without the background, and they
it drives me crazy. Yeah.
And then so that ends up giving you a bad name. It's like
100%.
People are vouching for you, and they shouldn't be vouching for you. Like, actually, you know what? Don't say my name ever.
Right.
Well,
yeah, I mean, and go ahead, Jeb. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think also back to that vernacular piece is that you're not trying to create your own language. You're literally saying this is a bilateral, sagittal squat. That's it. You're breaking it down. And so, and so if we all accept those words, which they're not yours, you're not copywriting them, you're not, doing any of that, then you're not trying to obfuscate things with your language. You're trying to actually simplify it. And then people can take that and go and do with it what they will.
Right. Look, I believe in it. I hope that it does really well. I hope that it's everything that I think it can be and all that. It'll make my life better. So I've got that bias built into it. But, I do think that if you have some stuff that you're providing to the world that you actually believe in and that you live, and that it kind of guides you, look, like it's a success no matter what, but it has the potential to become a really enormous success ultimately. And I think that there's a few parts of my life where that's starting to happen. I think the strength score is also something that I hope just hits this industry like a cannonball to the chest. Like I think that it has the potential from a quantifiable standpoint to be a real game changer. And we have some exciting, stuff that I'm not really talking about at this point that I think is going to make it much more accessible to everybody that wouldn't necessarily necessitate specific kinds of equipment. But
that would be great. Because we talked to Ethan about it, and that's like, especially like right now we're in this weird shift of like, we're potentially facing another set of lockdowns, and like, what does the future of your personal fitness look like? Is it in the gym as much, or is there something where, like you said, if it doesn't necessitate certain equipment, like if people could make that transition to smaller gyms or smaller training studios, that would be huge.
We think the fitness industry sucks, like the at-home workout bullshit video. Insta fitness is probably 10 times worse, and we don't even talk about that because none of us care about that. But that's probably a bigger maker than.
There's definitely all these. Well, look, like I am shocked with. I never appreciated the earnings possibility of the digital world until COVID, you know, and it's so much better compared to any of the in-person stuff. You know, I've benefited tremendously from COVID, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But shit, like like some people are willing to just go and earn money. Like you can't really even hate on some of these people that are probably providing bad services, but are actually providing a service and are being marketed well. Like, well, you can hate on them, but you should learn something from them. Like every time I'm fucking angry about something, I usually at least am smart enough to recognize there's something I could learn here. Like this is an opportunity to learn. Because a lot of times I'm angry, but it's like there's a tinge of jealousy built into it, or you know, something that's like I'm personalizing it and doing that kind of stuff. But like, you know, I could make my own version of it. And if I drive it and promote it and do all that kind of stuff, like I could take advantage of something like that. So again, it's sort of up to anybody to be able to think about how they could provide the service. Like there's a million ways that you could potentially, you know, navigate this current, you know, world of gyms closing or whatever it is. Gyms suck right now. Like, let's just face it. Like, if you're trying to make your living in a fucking gym, you're hurting bad. Okay, so do something different. Like, don't keep trying to, you know, jam these square pegs into these round holes. Like, the virtual world is potentially a gold mine for you if you can figure out how to give a decent product that differentiates you from the rest of the products out there, and get your message out to possible consumers. You know, but you got to fucking do it. Like nobody's going to do it for you. So I don't know, like I've got a client and this dude has built himself an incredible home gym. I mean, he's got the resources to do it, but he did it. You know what I mean? Like his home gym is sick now. And I think I give him better training sessions than many of my in-person people, which is kind of crazy. But when I'm training this guy, I'm locked in on him for the most part on the screen. When I've got people in the gym, like my ADD kicks in. I'm like talking to people over here. I'm kind of watching. I'm kind of doing this thing.
It's a huge social experience as like less fitnessy.
Right.
But I've heard this from a lot of physical therapists, from a lot of personal trainers. They've said the same thing. They're like, I'm better on these Zoom calls. And they're like, I'm getting these things done in 45 minutes versus like really slamming the end of that hour. It's like we're, you know, there's no travel time, but there's no setup, there's no bullshit. Like, hey, we get down to it and nailing it. It's just a pivot. But I think
that's it.
You know, kind of back to back to kind of where we're headed more with this idea of you know, kind of raising the industry up. Like we can be pissed about it, but like if you're not doing anything to change it, then shut the fuck up. And I think by providing this, and I know, you know, we're all in this to make money, but at the same time, we're still providing a service. So if you're creating a product that can help people be better, you're contributing to the betterment of the industry. You know, whether you make money on it or not, I don't give a shit. You know, and I think that at the base level, if we're not in this to elevate things, then that's probably why people aren't seeing success. Like if you're not trying to make things better, you're probably stuck.
So many, and there's so much undifferentiated noise in our industry too. Like there's people that I know that are trying to, you know, grow their followings or to become more well known, and they literally don't do anything different from the rest of the noise. It's like the same fucking person on a conveyor belt, like do-chunk, like fitness chick on Instagram, ka-chunk, another fitness chick on Instagram, ka-chunk, like same exact profile, like same sort of pictures, same exercises, same sort of written thing underneath it. And it's like, it doesn't stand out. It doesn't cut through the white noise of the background. It's just all the same shit. You know, it's so, and even in the movement world, it's like what differentiates this person from the other people all saying the same words, like at least in kind of the sphere that I'm familiar with. You know, it's like the same person over and over. Like every fucking powerlifter's Instagram profile looks exactly the same. It's like just videos of them doing the lifts, and then under it is kind of like the RPE and the numbers. And then at the top of their profile, it sort of tells me what weight class they're in and their total.
5 years ago.
But it's this, you know what I mean? And it's like what about this makes me notice you? And if your goal is to be noticed, why would I notice you? And this is a topic I've spent some time thinking about, because it really is, and it's a weird one. Why do people who claim that their goal is to use social media to grow their following and to make more money, but are being unsuccessful with the approach that they're using, why do they continue to use the same approach? And it's an interesting thing, and I think I do know the answer.
I have one too.
Number one, I think it's a two-part answer. Number one, I think that ultimately they might not know what their actual goal is, okay? Like, I think that perhaps their actual goal is like self-affirmation and some sort of like, essentially they get a like, they get a comment, and it gives them just enough of that reward system mechanism to satisfy what their actual goals are. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and the other thing is what leads to and reinforces the same behavior is the dopamine response and the positive reinforcement. So they're getting just enough of the positive reinforcement, which I believe is their actual goal. Like the self-esteem is low, the personal evaluation of themselves is actually low. So when they get any level of the dopamine affirmation from others, that actually hits their goal. And it's just enough to reinforce doing the same behavior over and over again, which would prevent them from actually seeking out and needing to do a different behavior. So it's really interesting. That fascinates me to no end.
Well, because you know what precedes that, especially in the fitness industry. I spent a lot of time talking about this one. But the people who were successful, so it's like everyone who jumps on the new train, generally there's a few people that pop. That's what's educating this, and everyone just forgot to do the next
copying
thing.
The
Instagram thing was like the Syatt, the Carter Goods. The people who popped off with infographics basically set the standard for what people are doing now, and they told everyone, you just got to post over and over and over and over again. And so everyone's looking at the person at the top, and he's like, don't quit, do the same fucking thing, because it did work, but no one actually pivoted. And so now we're stuck in this, because that was at the beginning of when Instagram was after the Wild West. And so there was the Wild West, everyone got followers. Then a few people popped with an actual logical method of posting, and everyone's stuck right there, which is probably like 4 years ago. Literally, it hasn't changed. You talked about the powerlifting thing. It literally hasn't changed from that standard that the people who popped did, and that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, why not change it? Jeb and I don't really care about it, but it's just like but we change some things. But it's like if you're actually in it to grow it, that makes no sense.
I'm like, literally social media for me is to drive people to my blog so that I can actually interact with them through email.
Mine's to sharpen my joking skills a lot of times, or like it's a giant troll. But I actually believe that because I already make enough money. I don't need that, which I don't think people get to that point. They're just, anyways. What's your second answer? So that you basically
that was it. Those were the two parts, that they don't know their goal, that their goal is actually just seeking approval.
Yeah, we can be honest.
Getting their validation from the likes and comments of others, and then that because it actually is giving them the positive reinforcement and the reward that is their goal that they're seeking. It gives them enough so that they perpetuate the behavior, because behaviors are perpetuated by receiving a positive reinforcement for the behavior.
None of them capitalize. Like weirdly, even if people who are successful don't capitalize, and the other people think that they're going to capitalize based on this fake capitalization they think other people are doing, when really they should have just focused on their in-person business. Because even you were making however many figures in fucking New York as a trainer training people, and everything was an afterthought, because that's probably it's weird that dopamine replaces money, because money should give you more of a dopamine, but it's almost like likes and popularity are still more important than money.
That's exactly what it is. People, but and when people don't realize that, you know what I mean? That's the thing. Like, they don't realize it. You know, like I use social media as a tool. My social media in many ways is actually not me either. Like, it's majority of my social media is pictures of words. You know, it's not really pictures of me or videos of me. It's almost, my Instagram is almost not me. It's depersonalized in a lot of ways. So by doing that, it's I don't know, like I feel as though
I've had people,
it gives me some separation.
It does. And I've actually had a few people be like, well, what's this? Because like people are interested in this stuff now, because even Jeb and I post there, we'll talk about our guests. Like, well, what is this Pat guy do? Sounds like he fucking just an asshole who hates everyone. And I'm like, partially, there's a method to this, but I'm like, I don't think enough people get to know that part. But they also haven't gone to your seminars and stuff, which is this weird conundrum of social media, which is inherently fake. And so it's just weird, because that's kind of the stuff driving the boat right now, or it seems like it. Like, that's the facade, and then no one kind of steps back and looks like, hey, there's gyms that are open, there's people training, there's people making money not on here. So how have you equated this to success in the fitness industry? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe you have an answer. Like, I don't know. Like, you're one of the only people who make money.
I was pretty late to Instagram, quite honestly.
Yeah.
You know, and I hated Instagram. Like, I was like, I don't want to look at stupid pictures of whatever bullshit people want to show me. Like, I hate looking at other people's pictures. I don't fucking care. So it didn't appeal to me as a platform. And also, I don't take pictures of fucking anything. No. I don't like taking pictures of things. It's just like, it actually like I find it, I get a really negative vibe when I'm around people taking pictures of shit. Like I'm really highly apt to like insult you and make fun of you if I see you taking fucking pictures of your food and like stopping to fucking pose and take pictures of all this. It really rubs me the wrong way. So the only shit I take pictures of is like if I see something that's ridiculous and I'm like, oh, I want to send this over to my boys and like we'll all like laugh at this dumb thing together. Like, that's the only shit I'll probably take a picture of. So it was like such a weird thing for me. Like, I'm like, I don't want to get involved with Instagram. It's stupid. And then I can remember, you know, my wife was telling me like, well, it's the thing that's like everybody's using this much more now. Like, you should try it. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not trying it. Like, I don't want to use it. I'll just keep using fucking Facebook. Like, I like reading what people write on Facebook. Like, that's the only thing I like. But anyways, I tried it and I just got a way bigger response to the things that I was doing on Instagram as compared to Facebook. And it was like, holy shit. Like, why have I not been using this thing? Like, this is clearly a better system to be able to interact with people and to reach more people and influence more people. So it just shifted over because of the bigger response to everything. And it snowballed since then. And I figured out a few strategies. I do a lot of experimental things with it. You know what I mean? I try to see what people respond to and what they don't respond to. And it just seems like they respond to anything about squatting. People respond to anything about squatting. Any information about squatting is the thing that when I feel like I need to recharge, you know, some activity on my platform, I just think of anything pertaining to the squat and write about it.
I'm waiting for a running post. Like, I already posted this. Like, someone was like, how do you like troll because I didn't troll that well. Pat didn't catch it. Like, you didn't do a good enough job. As soon as you do a running post, I'm literally tagging every GOATA in your post, and I'm gonna watch it ensue. Just wait. And they're gonna think they're friends with them. I'm gonna be like, look at this fucking moron, and they're gonna be like, yep, and then all your people are gonna come out. It's gonna be awesome. But there's the TR like fitness items that are kind of catchy to make fun of, do well, and then anything nutrition wise, because nutrition brings out crazies, especially when you have a following. Those are my favorite ones from you, because I don't know why some people follow you. Because they know, like, if you've seen
some of the people that step into the
and they're like, I'm
arena.
unfollowing you. I'm like, this was the post you're unfollowing him for? Like, he's literally posted in like spandex in a blow-up doll thing. Like, didn't bother you, but the fake sugar thing did. Like, makes no sense.
So, the one that I sometimes I post things to see how many people I can lose as a following. Like, I find that super entertaining, actually. And the one I thought that the video, the infomercial of Fat Chick Fatter was going to cause like me to lose like thousands and thousands of people. And I lost 0 people, and I got no negative feedback or criticism from that. I was like, actually, I was nervous when I posted that one. I was like, this is going to blow up in my face. Like, this is going to become the most negative thing I've ever done. And I'm going to have some possible problems and like litigation from this one. And literally nothing happened. And I was so disappointed by that one. I thought I was dropping a nuclear bomb into the internet, and it absolutely fizzled out and did nothing.
I don't get it. I actually like reading your social media just for like an experiment to see who's gonna come out. Because like some people, like some of your posts like do shit. It's like anything where people have to actually think. Like your category ones, like they're the worst.
Yeah,
like,
they do nothing. Yeah,
they're like, okay, Pat, we get it. You like categories, like, but we don't actually want to read that. We just want you to give us the exercise. And like, this is adductors, right? Like that's all they want.
The artificial sweetener one blew my mind. How far that one went.
Like, I wish there were more nutrition ones, because it's just like brings.
I just don't think of that many things. Like, I feel like nutrition is so like there's actually really good practitioners in nutrition who have laid everything out, and it's like it's pretty clear. Like, and like so I most of the time I want to share something that actually is like somebody hasn't thought of it, and this is useful in some ways. And I'm like, I don't have anything to contribute to nutrition. Like, it's fucking done.
This is where, like, I know you're not going to do it because it doesn't fit the model where you're going, but the nutrition one is where the money's at. Like, you could literally say something that's pretty much at this point true, and it will do better than all your posts. Like, it makes no sense because people.
My problem with nutrition stuff though is the arguments are so blunt and dumb, and I just don't want to have that conversation, like because there's so many things, like you have to say something that is blatantly wrong and right at the same time. It's like it's such a nuanced conversation a lot of times.
How many people
like,
actually
like,
want to explain themselves? Like, because you're like,
well,
you're like seeing this, you're like, I'm gonna have to actually write a post for this, and like no one, people who want to do that, but the people who like think it's hilarious, like don't want to write a post because they know it's not going anywhere. It's like with the.
But it's like the big nutrition was like, you can say like, oh, keto is dumb. Well, is it? Because there's lots of situations where it's actually really probably a really great idea. and unfortunately, when you know people that are like, oh, actually, they've done research on TBI and keto, and you're like, oh, okay, well then.
Yeah,
so it's like this.
You can't.
That's the problem I have with nutrition.
You have to actually write a post for that. You have to actually have an argument and stuff, and like that's not fun. Like, it's actually not fun arguing when you have to actually write like 10 minutes.
But the thing is, a lot of times people, like, again, what's your goal? Is your goal for your post to get noticed and to be shared a ton and to have lots of likes and comments? Yeah. Or is your post, is your purpose to be right? Because I feel like social media is kind of like being in a relationship with a woman, okay? Being right is not often the path to what you want, okay? And a lot of times it can actually be your worst enemy. Like, you'll pay a price for being right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the best approach is to leave things unsaid and let people fill in the blanks for themselves.
And
it works very well.
These Twitter posts. Jeb and I literally just make Twitter posts. Like, at least I do. I'm like, Jeb, is this like gray enough? And then people are like, yeah, you're I was like, people don't think I'm right about anything. And then they're like, yeah, go brother. And they'll like message me like, right on, 100%. I'm like, Jesus Christ, is this for real? Like, I literally said the dumbest thing ever. But that, yeah.
But like Robert Greene's got a lot of great books, and Art of Seduction, I think, is a fantastic read that people would get a lot out of. And he talks a lot about how if you want to be seductive, it's more about what you don't say than what you say, and leaving an air of mystery, and leaving like the Gestalt principle is something people love in their own lives. Like, people would prefer to, it's like a good scary movie, it's like the scary movie sucks as soon as you see the the bad guy or the villain or whatever the hell it is. Like Jaws, the best part of Jaws is all the parts of the movie before you see the shark. And then as soon as you see the shark, it's not as good after that. So the more that you can keep some things veiled, the better from that perspective. Like, lack of, like, you have to appreciate like existing in the shadows and existing in the oblique angles and the crevices in some ways, rather than trying to shine the light on everything. To me, that's not the best use of social media. It's almost like you come across as being overbearing and trying too hard and all these kinds of things. Now, I think a book is where that's appropriate. It's like, this is your opportunity to lay everything out, have all the structure, put all your work into it. And from a marketing perspective, an advertising perspective, social media growth, you're much better off with playing with the angles and leaving things unsaid for other people to say them for you in whatever way it is that they want to say them.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Almost like the whole idea of like art being for the consumer and not the producer.
But this is where it's crazy. So we go back to this GOATA thing. Like, they kind of like, this is where the line between that guruism and cult-ish and like trying to make a difference, because I bet they think they're trying to make a difference, but I don't know if they're systematically trying to be gurus. But the same things that happen in your post happen in their posts, because I go try to follow it, and like they'll take someone and fucking boom, here comes out, you know about singularity? This motherfucker doesn't know about coiling. Oh, do you see he's on his big toe? And they get their followers to do it for them. It actually blows my mind, because it's a very similar process, but it's like, are they wrong too for doing that? And that's where it's like, that's where we use science, but then literally the argument is the science people don't know because they don't look at slow motion video. But really what they're saying is they're not looking at observational data and experience. And so that it is a conundrum, because I'm using GOATA, but like, that is other camps.
I think you're right about the similarities. The difference is that they lack the full depth and substance behind their knowledge and product.
Yeah.
So if you have the real McCoy, or like, if you have a real fucking Rolex, that's it. Like, everybody can tell the difference, or like a Rolls Royce or something like that. Like, you can feel it. And then when you advertise it, you should use the same principles of like showing it from the right angles, not telling everything to the consumer about it, having a like mystery associated with it and all that kind of stuff. But once you get that Rolls Royce, you're gonna know it's not a fucking Toyota Camry. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, like, or you do like the Catena Cadillac, where you take a Pontiac, slap the Cadillac front end on the front of it, and everyone's driving around. They're like, dude, that's not a Cadillac.
This is where it's actually kind of crazy, because I would agree. But then there's the part where like they have people go to their like, I'm using GOATA, but you could take any fucking class, whatever fucking thing. But they'll go and they've like, because the aura of having a community and like giving them the wine that's laced with drugs, like everyone's like, they feel like they're part of it, and then they feel like it works. So it's like, is it working because of this? And that's where measurables are helpful. But like, I believe that people believe, you know what I mean? Which is that more powerful? It's like, because I don't know. It's crazy because it's like the same thing is happening. People think they're driving a Rolls Royce, even though it's like they convinced them that like this Camry is a Rolls Royce. They're like, yeah, it kind of feels like it. And it's
but I still think at the end of the day, you know, like it's. I can remember. Shit, I'm trying to think of exactly what it was like. Sometimes you hear salesmen and like the same like, oh, I could sell ice to the Eskimos, and you know that's always their thing. Like it's all about the marketing, it's all about that. And it's like, well, what if you sold fucking space heaters to them instead? Like, do you think you could do a good job with that? Like, as a salesperson, wouldn't you like to actually have the right thing to sell them? Like, don't you think that if you combined your knowledge and abilities of sales with a great product for the consumer, don't you think that synergy would actually lead to like something truly amazing? And again, I just would say that ultimately, like they're utilizing this, doing a pretty decent job of selling ice cubes to Eskimos, as opposed to having something that would actually be like a, you know, a central heating.
I think the proof comes in the product, like you were saying. I went and read their book because it was on Kindle Unlimited. So anyone who wants to like learn about the idiocracy of it, $6 subscription, it's on there. It's like, I want to say it's like 40 pages. It's like when you put the side by side by your book, it's like then the truth will come out. And that's where I think like Instagram, you're on a level playing field because you can use the shadows to do this, but then lay the book out or whatever the next thing is, like a seminar. Yeah. But even seminars, you can have the people that the book is not going to lie because you have to think substance.
Yeah, everybody spits game on Instagram, and everybody has basically the same kind of game. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you're probably going to have to pull your dick out. And at a certain point, when you have a fucking 3-incher versus a 9, it's like everybody's going to know the difference at that point.
And they're going to know if it's fake or not. Like people still have to read it. Like let's just say you pulled out a fake plastic 9-incher. Like they're going to figure what's plastic real. Well, they should be able to eventually. Like it still has to work.
Yeah.
That's
it all basically goes back to dicks, Dean.
Yeah, well, it kind of does. Like you can use dick as ego or whatever, but like there is a very good metaphor there that I think most people would agree with. It's kind of like that video about I'm not even gonna say like the obese people and that you made. It's like there's some truth in some of that stuff, and people tend to agree, even though it's like totally awful. But
well, you're not allowed to actually speak about the reality that you observe in some ways about reality. There's some parts of reality that you're not allowed to mention anymore, and I find that to be troubling. And you know, I'm not someone that shies away from those things typically, you know, and I do think that's something that more people need to do, is to operate from a perspective of greater truthfulness, because truth is not a binary thing, in my opinion. I think truth is a spectrum, and I think that there's a lot of layers to it. And I think that ultimately it's like courage and truth go hand in hand. And a lot of people lack the courage to truly get down to the deepest levels of the truth that they observe about themselves and about the world around them. And then they're afraid to share those things. And there's probably times where it's a bad move to say what you believe in, but also like questioning your own beliefs is also a level of truthfulness that is a further layer that you need to expose to yourself. And look, like, you know, sometimes people aren't direct. They don't talk about things in a direct manner. They don't name names. They don't pull things out into the light and talk about what they're seeing. I hope that if I can be anything, I hope it's as an example of someone that demonstrates a lack of fear about talking about that which I believe I'm observing as accurately as I'm observing it. But there's not enough of it. I really do think
that's the book.
Yeah.
because like you said, we talked about imposter syndrome, and this is my new rant about how it's not real. If like the reason why people aren't telling their truth is because like they don't have a good enough product to put out. It's like, is that imposter syndrome, or is that just like you're not willing to put it out online because you haven't done the work? And I think that most people aren't willing to say the truth because they really don't want to admit that, hey, I didn't do enough to kind of do well. And so you should probably just not say anything. And I think a lot of people are stuck there because they don't want to do the work. Because the work would also be saying like, hey, I haven't done it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
The entirety of self-help is literally people buying book after book after book, so they don't actually have to look at their own shit and be like, hey, maybe I'm the reason that I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. Like, it's that what happened to you is not your fault. But what happens to you, what you do with it is like, and
that's what I mean. If you have a product,
buy another book, you can listen to another podcast, you can go to another seminar. Guess what? That's not going to change shit until you look in the mirror and do the thing.
And when you put out something for people to buy, you're basically saying, hey, like, this is me. And then you have to own it because people are going to say what they're going to say regardless.
Yeah, look, I think these are like the real deal topics that like are some of the most impactful and important things for people. And Jeb, what you just brought up is such a can of worms and a huge area of discussion. And look, man, like we all hide from ourselves, like all of us in so many ways. And we use so many distractions to prevent us from examining ourselves. It's such a hard fucking thing to be a human being. You know what I mean? It really is. Like, the world is very complicated. Our species in many ways is too smart for its own good. It's like we kind of had to invent religion to shield us from the harshness of accepting our own death. We looking at yourself and like feeling the pain of what you've gone through in different parts of your life is a brutal thing. But you know what? Like the only true ability to free yourself is through feeling the pain that you've gone through, like legitimately feeling it, staring intensely and letting your hand burn in your own fire. And if you do that, that's the only medicine that actually exists for people that are dealing with those kinds of difficulties. But the willingness and the lack of courage to stare at the truth is a plague. And it's getting worse in our society, as you can always just distract yourself more and more with the constant sort of low-grade reward system of Netflix, social media, workaholism, without ever really getting anything done. All of the fucking things that we do that are just sort of shitty, low-tier approaches for spending your time.
Well, you end up replacing the actual human experience with the fake human experience, when really a lot of people, and this is where the religion book was cool, is like a lot of these things, religion, drugs, whatever, was created to get people to understand they're going to die and be okay with it. And honestly, if you feel these things, also to understand none of it matters. And that's a hard thing to grasp with, because so people are like, well, if it doesn't matter, I'm just going to do this. But really, they just ignored the whole experience, which again, they'll figure out that probably wasn't the thing at the end of the day. But like, you don't know it till you know it. And so they created drugs. Or you could just
I'm oft accused of being a nihilist, but I'm in actuality, I'm like, no, it's just that since none of this stuff matters, take that experience and focus it on the things that do matter, and you'll have a much more joyful experience.
Which is hard,
right? Really nihilism.
Like you said, we're too smart for our own good. They're like, well, we'll just manufacture it. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that was the right idea. Because I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, you have to ask someone who's dead, which... Like, hey, how was that meaningful, or should you have like burned your hand in the fire? I'm gonna guess that.
But again, kind of coming full circle to all this really is taking that which we, avoid, and looking, because, pain, experience, whatever it is, and then taking that and focusing it into our shared experience, and doing it through, fitness, through exercise, like that, what we would call kind of a low level distraction can kind of become a high reward thing. And one of your quotes is always, you got to learn to eat shit. And I think through this shared experience of fitness, which people would look at as this, I don't know, narcissistic pursuit or whatever, there actually is a much deeper, greater truth there. And I think that's where all of us probably coalesced around wanting this thing and giving it to more people is it is, like you said, this quote unquote movement is medicine. Like, this can be your drug, and it's probably a lot better one than the one we choose.
It's like exercise, movement. It saved my life.
Absolutely,
really
me too.
And because you do see that. I think Mike Israetel had a post recently where somebody, like, they were talking about his YouTube, and they were like, this is a fucking ridiculous YouTube, and it's like just a narcissistic pursuit of looking better, and you're just pumping weights and fucking blah, blah, blah. Like, you're not really helping anybody, this, that, and the other thing. And I was thinking, like, guys like that are the reason that I'm not dead right now. They're the reason that, like, my occiput doesn't have an exit wound in a coffin somewhere. Quite honestly, like, in all seriousness. And it's like, because there's someone that spent so much time thinking about the pursuit of hypertrophy to that level of depth, it inspires me to think that maybe I could have the same kind of meaningfulness in my life of pursuing learning about something and like homing a craft at a level of like, I don't know, I just think about almost like samurai way back in the day, like practicing this routine and learning a lot about themselves and building a system around it, and like turning that into the way that they conduct their lives. All of these things have the potential to be very impactful on people's lives if you're able to take it to a place that's like,
you're essentially bringing people through the hierarchy, like that social, whatever, Maslow's, whatever. You're bringing people up to the hierarchy, because it's like, okay, this person did it, but you've also achieved it. So it's like a lot of people don't understand their experience in the human experience when they're experiencing it. But like these kind of things allow you to kind of think about, you can think about this stuff, and then you can choose whatever the fuck you want to do.
If you can approach your lifting and your nutrition and these things with this systematic, categorical approach that is the basis for, to bring it back to Rethinking the Big Patterns, you can start to do that to other aspects of your life, and you start to realize that while, yes, there is chaos out there, we can see some order to it, and to find that through something that people see as
like
silly
a full
or
circle.
whatever.
We're basically talking about creating religion to get over our own death and experience.
I don't know, like individual personal empowerment and learning how to gain some access of control over your life. And you can learn that through almost any example. Another example is really it, and being able to carry that example over to other parts of your life and to be proud of who you are as a person, I think is a great end goal for people to strive towards. So, I know that from a time perspective, I think it's getting to the point where
I think that was
unfortunately have to jump
that.
off. Yeah.
Because basically you're not a dick. Even though you can be one, like you've basically explained a very humanistic, is that even a word, part of your experience that I think will help other fitness professionals understand the path. Even though for full circle, we got Pat's little view on it, little or big, or appears big or appears small, whatever.
Sometimes it looks small, but then it like expands.
Your whole, exactly. We had to end on that. Okay, give people, not that it fucking matters, but where do people find you and see all this stuff?
I have everything on Instagram at Dr. Pat Davidson, Dr. Pat Davidson. Yeah. So easy central location.
And we'll try to drop this. If the book's coming out soon, this will be a perfect timing. We can drop this right when it comes out. It'll be sweet.
Yeah, it'd be great. Well, hey guys, I really appreciate it. I'm
All right,
gonna
buddy.
jump off, and we'll talk soon, hopefully.
All right, thanks, Pat.
That's right. I have wrestled with an alligator. I done tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail.
You can't stop me.
I'm going to win. It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
I just keep getting stronger.
Stronger?
Stronger. Stronger.